One of the great things about virtual assistants is the way that you can set up systems for them to be trained. I'm going to share a story with you about my old business. One of the main problems that I had that really kept me from scaling, and really what eventually led me to get kind of disenfranchised with it and decide to move on to something else. Um, I was running a call center in Hawaii, selling tours and activities, and fairly high volume of calls, but it was very seasonal because we were selling luau's and helicopters and snorkel trips and stuff like that to visitors to the island, and there's definitely high seasons and low seasons. So what would end up happening is I would end up having to inflate the size of the staff for the high seasons, and then during the low season I'd have to let people go because the cost of labor in Hawaii is so expensive to be able to keep everybody on when there wasn't the revenues coming in during the slow season just wasn't feasible. So I just had this non-stop training, onboarding, training, letting people go, onboarding, training, letting people go, which for some things it's not really the hugest issue, but for what we were doing, we were selling about 1,400 different products, and it was a fairly high touch sort of industry where people really wanted to know a lot of details about their different tours and activities. How long is it? Where does it go out of? All that sort of stuff. And there was just a lot of knowledge, and to be the person that had to deal with all that training, I just kept thinking there has to be a better way. There has to be a better way. And unfortunately, it wasn't until I started working in the Philippines with virtual assistants over there that I developed a new method that is so much easier. And I think that if I'd have utilized something like this when I was in the tours and activities business, I might still be in the tours and activities business. But essentially, what I figured out with the virtual assistants is I wanted to make things as easy as possible for my clients. I didn't want them to have to worry about training, and then training more people, training less people if there was an issue, and we lost somebody for some reason and we needed to get a replacement. I didn't want them to be inconvenienced with having to be super involved in that training and retraining process, because I felt that it would really hurt the branding of my company. So what I did instead is I instituted a method that I call different things. The one and done method, the Borg method. I think the Borg method actually is one of the better descriptions of it. If you don't know what the Borg is, in Star Trek, there's a alien species that they're basically like kind of almost like internet people, where they're all connected together, and they have like a hive mind where they all think from the same mind, and you wouldn't have any problems training those kind of people. But basically they learn from each other, and they pick up on each other's experiences and feelings and all that sort of stuff. So the backstory to why it's the Borg method. So anyway, what we do with this is essentially the first person in the team becomes the person that's going to be doing the training. So your first virtual assistant that you get will eventually become your team lead as you expand your team, if you expand your team. And that person is in charge of learning the tasks and learning what needs to be done. getting all the information from the client, documenting all that information. From there, when we bring on a new person onto the team, we have the initial team member train the new team member. So the client doesn't have to be involved at all. And once the client has been able to successfully train the first person, they can scale up, scale down their team without having any issues on their end in terms of having to use their time to do so. Obviously, as you're ramping someone up and training them, there's going to be kind of a ramp up period where they're going to be probably less effective than they will be once they're a little bit more seasoned, which is inevitable no matter who trains them. But in terms of your time commitment, by having that first team member be responsible for training every team member that comes after them, it makes it to where it's just incredibly more efficient and really allows you to delegate tasks without having to have them kind of like peep up and, you know, you have to re-delegate those tasks again in order to get them dealt with. It's a pretty easy solution. So it can be done in different ways. Sometimes, depending on what kind of task we're talking about, it'll be screen recording. Sometimes there will be like written protocoling. There can be a lot of different ways that the Borg method can manifest itself. But essentially, it's the first person then is in charge of the onboarding for everybody else, and that's something that we've done since the beginning in our company, and our clients have really liked it. The other thing that we do with that, because inevitably there's so much documentation that gets created during that process, it makes it to where we can give clients the option of having like a B team, having, if there's an issue, say someone gets sick and they're not going to be there for today and tomorrow, we could have the option of having somebody come on and handle the tasks by viewing that documentation and doing the best that they can to be able to fill in. Obviously the B team's probably not as good as the A team, but it's definitely a lot better than no team at all. So that's kind of another byproduct that we get from this method, and clients really like that one a lot, because in a traditional in-house setting, it's not something that you can really do. Normally the manpower in most businesses is pretty spoken for. It's rare that you'll kind of get the situation that we have in a BPO, where we normally have a little bit of surplus hours that we have going on, just to have some backup. Normally we're kind of on a big scale of pulling people on, so we kind of always have some trainees and stuff like that we can put into use if needed, in the event that someone doesn't show up. So for a small business that normally would have to hobble along, missing one of their legs essentially when they have somebody out, it gives them another option that normally is not there. So anyway, it's getting a little bit late. I just wanted to try and add a little bit of value before I call it a day here. If you have any questions about virtual assistants, about how to get set up with them, how to train them, where to get them, anything, get in touch with me. You can send me a message on YouTube. You can write a comment below. You can look me up on LinkedIn, Jake Barefoot. You can go to troublefreeemployees.com, send us a contact form, or any of the other social medias. We have a Facebook group called How to Use Virtual Assistants. If you're kind of interested in the concept of virtual assistants, but you don't necessarily have like a specific question, that you want to ask me. There's a lot of questions and answers there that you can find, and that can be a good resource for you if you're a Facebook user. How to use a virtual assistant group, join it. And yeah, thank you for watching, really appreciate it, and looking forward to seeing you guys soon. Enjoy.